My name is Julie. I'm with Tina Steam and Facebook Parents. We're so glad you're joining us this evening. We have Mr. Dave Fendel, and he is with the Contra Costa County Office of Education. He is the coordinator for social and emotional learning, so he's the perfect person to come to with your questions. So please, if you have any questions, type them in the chat room. Dave, we're so glad that you took time to be with us. I'm sure you must be extremely busy right now.
I'm really happy to join you this evening, so thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay. Well, can you tell me, we talked before, what is your primary concern right now as far as our students are concerned?
Well, before I go there, Julie, I want to just say that not only am I the coordinator of social and emotional learning for the County Office of Education, but I'm also a parent. And so
Yes.
I have my own 14-year-old at home who has had his ups and downs with distance learning and everything that's going on with the pandemic. And so I can definitely relate to a lot of the struggles that a lot of the people are having out there. And so to answer your question, first and foremost, I think is the emotional health of our teenagers. I think that's paramount. That comes first. How school is going and how our students are meeting their academic requirements is of course also important, and we don't want to forget about that. And I would say that you can't have that second piece. We can't have academic success if we don't have emotional wellness.
Yeah, you mentioned that when you were talking, and I keep hearing the buzz around the county, Maslow before
Bloom. Yeah,
that was it. Yes. Yes.
buzzword that's definitely going around these days. And quite simply, so, for those who don't know, Maslow is a famous psychologist who has this hierarchy of needs, and basically that your basic emotional needs need to be met. And so Bloom talks about sort of levels of academic thinking, from basic to complex critical thinking skills. But what we know from all the research is that our kids and adults, really anybody, it's not just kids, you can't access those higher cognitive functions if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're depressed. Your emotional state really drives your engagement in learning. And so we really have to focus on our kids' basic emotional needs first before we can pivot to their academic demands.
How can we help our kids? How can we support our kids? How can we make sure that they are where they need to be emotionally so that they can learn?
That's a wonderful question, and it's really difficult. We know that teenagers are strange beasts to begin with, as they go through this massive developmental change in their life at this point in time. But what we can do is watch them. So watch for signs that look for changes in behavior. Are they withdrawing? Are they losing interest in activities that they normally are engaged in? How are they sleeping? Things like that. And if there are major patterns that are disrupted or are changing. I'll just tell a little story about my own 14-year-old at home. So he's a ninth grader, so this is his first year of high school, and he was really excited about starting high school. And he was in a good mood. And then the first day of online classes happened, and I think it was this huge disappointment for him. And he went into this incredible funk that lasted a couple of weeks, actually, and it was painful to watch him struggle. But so one of the things that we did in our home was we reached out to the school, and we got him an appointment with a counselor. And we reached out to, after a week or so, we recognized that one of his teachers was really good with the relationship building skills. And we reached out to the teacher and we asked him if he could just sort of connect one-on-one. And he did that, and it was really helpful. If you see your student struggling, it doesn't have to be you if you've got that relationship, but sometimes kids don't want to talk to their parents. There's all sorts of interesting dynamics within families, and so we can help facilitate connections with other adults as well in that way.
You know, Dave, that just warms my heart, because one thing that parents need to remember is last spring, we were really caught off guard.
Oh yeah.
And nobody was really prepared for what we were in for and thought it might only be a couple of weeks. But schools are ready now. Our county, our district, they're ready. They're on top of it and they really want to help. So whether it's a teacher, I mean, that's a great story, or a counselor. We all, all of our schools in this area have great counselors, all of them that we work with at Teen Esteem, and even the principal or the assistant principal.
And the other thing that I would say along with that is that you're not alone, and your kid is not alone. Many people are struggling, and one of the things, unfortunately, in our society is that there's this huge stigma around mental wellness and mental illness, and having struggles. One of the things that I really want that we do around here is really try to work towards destigmatizing when kids struggle with anxiety or depression or other common mental wellness issues.
I love hearing that, because just a few days ago, we were at a local high school via Zoom, and we asked, how many of you have struggled since the pandemic started with depression? And every single hand went up in the entire class.
Yeah.
Yeah. So certainly they're not alone.
Yeah. But people sometimes feel they are alone, and they're resistant to seeking support. And so I would encourage everybody to seek support. One of the people who I've been really influenced by recently is a man named Mark Brackett. And he has a book called Permission to Feel. I actually have a copy of it right here. I keep it on my desk. And one of the things that Dr. Brackett talks about, Dr. Brackett is the director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and he's done a lot of research on the connection between emotion and learning, actually. And one of his big ideas is that we're not going to be happy all the time, right? And so we don't want to strive to be happy, right? When we say we want our kids to be happy, what we should really strive for is wellness. And one of the things he talks about is being an emotion scientist and not an emotion judge. And I really love that concept. And so when we talk about that, what we mean is emotions are information. And when our kids are having emotions, that's information. And so there's a real opportunity there to open up dialogue and knowledge. So if your kid is saying, I'm having a hard time, acknowledge this is really hard. This is really different. And it makes sense that you're having a hard time. And it's understandable that you're having a hard time, right? And not sort of dismissing it and saying, oh, it'll get better, because that sort of closes down that dialogue. So we want to be open-ended and accepting of what our kids are going through. Don't be afraid to have what feels like a very difficult conversation. And one of the things that we're really concerned about, teen suicide is a huge issue. One of the myths is that if we talk to our kids about suicide, we're going to plant the seed of that idea. And that is it's totally not true. That is out there in the world. Our kids know about suicide. They're very likely talking about it perhaps with their friends. Schools talk about it. It's part of the mandate of school curriculum is to do suicide prevention training with kids. And so one of the first hallmarks of suicide prevention is to really be direct and say, are you thinking about suicide? Is that something that's crossed your mind? It's a hard thing to say, but if you don't use those blunt words, your kid may not say yes to that. And if they say yes, then it's time to seek professional help. That's when you call your school, call a counselor. There's hotlines out there.
Right, and 1-800-273-TALK is with the county, or 741-741 is the text if you need help, if you need to reach out. One of the things we try to tell parents is, even if you're freaking out on the inside, don't on the outside. Just you might not like what you're going to hear, but you need to hear it. And you don't want to shut things down by letting them know. So Dave, one of the things that you work with is the social wellness. And right now that's super hard.
It's really hard.
Yes, you told me about your son.
Early on, he's on Instagram like most kids are these days. And that's a whole nother topic of conversation. Social media is that double-edged sword, right? Because it is a way that our kids can find connection and can communicate with their friends. But social media is also a place where, people present their best selves on social media, and it can often this unrealistic. And then there's this competition for how many likes can I get, and it can really be socially isolating at the same time. So we really need to watch our kids on social media.
Yeah.
So the story I was telling you was early on, my son was on Instagram and was seeing pictures of his friends at the park without masks, getting together. And we didn't allow him to do that, and his response to it was, aren't my friends so dumb? They're doing all those things and their risk. That was his response. But I know many kids are getting to the battle with their adults at home about, my friends are doing this. You're the only parent who doesn't let me do this, right? And try to lay that guilt trip on us. And so it's really strong. It's really important that we stick to our family values, being able to explain that to your child about, this is what our family believes in. And you might see this on social media or other places. You might hear about things, but we want to keep you safe, and we love you and we care about you. And we're going to stick with our family values in that. And at the same time, trying to facilitate some ways for our kids to be social. We know how important social interactions are for teenagers. What we do in our family is making sure we're following health guidelines put out by the county, or whether that's, I have a younger son as well, 9 years old, and he does Zoom play dates at 9 years old. But teenagers can do that too, right? Just get on FaceTime or Zoom and have that ability to be social, because their friends, at this age, we know friends are even more important than family sometimes.
It really is. So Dave, can you tell us a little bit? I know from what we're seeing, teachers are working so hard. This is really difficult on them too. So we want to encourage parents to thank your teachers and be patient with them, be patient with your kids, and be patient with yourself.
Please, yes.
Yeah.
The folks, the teachers, the folks in the district offices, they are working harder than I have ever seen them work. And they really are so dedicated to the students. And this is all new, right? And so, you have to think, like I said before, everybody has different values. Some people want their kids back in school. Some people don't want their kids back in school. Everybody's got a different opinion. And so schools are working really hard to try to set up the best systems possible to meet the needs of all of our kids.
Well, I want to make sure that parents don't forget to look in the comments. We have a great handout that will give you some awesome tips and strategies for distance learning, including if you're struggling with homework arguments with your kids. So before we leave, Dave, do you have anything to add? Any tips, tricks?
So for homework, my tips and tricks for homework are structure. One of the things that our kids are really struggling with is managing all, especially teenagers, if they have 5 or 6 different classes, managing all the different assignments. And so they really need help with that executive functioning skills. And so a daily planner or writing things down, checklists, things that help them organize. Be careful of the power struggles, right? And so we want, again, we want our kids to understand that we're on their side and we're here to support them. We're not here to browbeat them. And so if they're missing an assignment, a question I might ask my teenagers, I'll do a daily check-in with him. How'd it go today? What was difficult about school today? How are you doing with turning in your assignments? And, if he says, well, I didn't get this one in, instead of going, it's, you're struggling with that. What can we do to help you with that? What might, be a source of support for you?
Yeah, we're hearing parents thinking that they have to step in and be the teacher and
No.
Yeah.
Definitely not. We are not the teacher. We can help them set up, like I said, emotional support. We can help them with some executive functioning skills and some structures, but we are not expected to be the teachers at home. We are too busy. And 2, we really want to give our kids the strategies to seek the help that they need. That's a life skill, right? We're not going to be with them when they go to college, if they go to college. So if our kids are going to college, we're not going to be with them, and they've got to develop their own strategies for seeking help. And sometimes that means letting our kids struggle to some degree, and that's okay.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's such a treat to have you, and we really appreciate your time. So I want to encourage parents again, please, if you have any questions, Dave is here and he's watching for your questions and he will answer them. So please type them in the chat. And if you're not watching this live, we'll make sure we get the questions to him if you type them in later. So please do that. And Dave, just thank you so much. Thanks for your support.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too.